You think you can run from me? That baby's mine, and I don't give a damn if you hate every bone in my body. It all began 3 months earlier on a humid night that smelled of street food and possibility. Aisha walked into an underground club in Itiwan, music thumping so hard it rattled her chest. She needed to forget the ex who cheated, the life that felt too small back in Chicago. She ordered soju, leaned against the bar, and that's when she felt eyes on her. Across the crowded floor stood Jihoon Kim, tall, sharp-jawed, dressed in a black suit that cost more than most people's rent. Tattoos crawled up his neck. A thin scar cut across his cheek, and his gaze locked on her like she was the only person in the room. He crossed the floor with the kind of confidence that parted crowds without effort. His English was smooth, but edged with a Korean accent that made every word sound dangerous. "You look like you came here to forget something," he said, sliding a drink toward her. She laughed, sharp and real, and fired back. "And you look like trouble I don't need." But she took the drink. They talked for hours about music, food, the way soul never sleeps. He listened when she spoke about growing up black in America, the weight of always proving herself twice as hard. She saw something flicker in his eyes when she asked about the scar. He brushed it off, but the air between them crackled. By the end of the night, they were in his penthouse high above the Han River. City lights sparkled below like scattered diamonds. Clothes hit the floor fast. Urgent, hungry, two people chasing something raw and honest in each other. It felt like fire, like freedom. Aisha told herself it was just one night. She slipped out before dawn, leaving no note, no number. Life moved on. She threw herself into work, made a few friends, started feeling like soul could be home. Then one morning, nausea hit hard. The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines. Panic clawed at her chest. Alone in a foreign country, carrying a stranger's baby. She booked a doctor's appointment, determined to handle it her way. But Jihoon Kim wasn't a man who let things go. Gifts started appearing at her door. High-end prenatal vitamins, tiny designer baby clothes, envelopes of cash she sent back unopened. A black car followed her at a distance. She confronted the driver once, furious, but he only bowed and said, "Boss's orders." Then came the day at the clinic. She sat waiting for her name to be called when the door slammed open. There he was, flanked by 2 silent men in suits, rain dripping from his coat. His eyes went straight to the slight curve under her sweater. "That's my child," he said, voice low and final. The room went dead quiet. Aisha stood up slowly, heart pounding. "You don't get to decide that. You don't even know me." He stepped closer, ignoring the stares. "I know enough. I know I felt something that night I can't forget. And I know no child of mine grows up without a father." She wanted to slap him, wanted to scream. Instead, she walked out into the rain. He followed. "Aisha, wait." She spun around. "How do you even know my name?" A dark smile touched his lips. "I have resources." That's when the truth sank in. He wasn't just some rich playboy. Jihoon Kim ran the Shadow Syndicate, the most powerful underground network in Seoul. People feared him. People disappeared because of him. Over the next weeks, he inserted himself into her life with relentless determination. Bodyguards appeared outside her apartment. Money showed up in her account. She closed it and opened a new one. He showed up at her favorite cafe with takeout bulgogi and that intense stare. "Eat," he'd say, "for the baby." She hated how her body responded to him, hated the way her pulse raced when he was near point one night. After another argument, she let him in. Just to talk, she told herself. They sat on her small couch, city lights flickering through the window. He spoke quietly about losing his mother at 10, watching his father build an empire of blood, how he'd never known anything soft until her. "That night wasn't just sex for me," he admitted. "You looked at me like I was a man, not a monster." Aisha's walls cracked just a little. She told him about her own pain, the betrayal that sent her running across the world, the fear of raising a child alone. But trust didn't come easy. Strange cars lingered too long outside her building. Once, a man followed her home from the market. Jihoon's people intercepted him before Aisha even noticed. My enemies know about you now, Ji-hoon said grimly. They'll use you to hurt me. She laughed bitterly. So, I'm collateral damage in your war? He grabbed her hands, eyes fierce. Never. I die before I let anyone touch you. The first real scare came on a busy Saturday. Aisha was shopping for maternity clothes when a van screeched to the curb. Masked men jumped out. She ran, heart in her throat, but Ji-hoon's car appeared like magic. His men fought them off while he pulled her inside, shielding her body with his. Bullets shattered the windows. She trembled against him as they sped away. That night, safe in his arms despite everything, she whispered, I can't do this alone. He held her tighter. You never have to again. As her belly grew rounder, so did the threats. Ji-hoon's world was closing in, rivals circling like sharks, smelling blood. Aisha saw the toll it took on him. The late nights, the blood on his knuckles he tried to hide, the way he watched her sleep like she might vanish. During a secret ultrasound, they heard the heartbeat together for the first time. Ji-hoon's hand shook on hers. Tears glistened in his eyes. Tears from a man who probably hadn't cried since childhood. I don't care if you hate me, he said again, voice breaking. Just let me protect you both. Aisha looked at him, really looked, and saw past the Mafia boss to the broken boy who'd never had anyone choose him. Something shifted inside her that day. Hate was still there, tangled with fear and anger. But beneath it all burned something warmer, something that terrified her more than any gun. Little did she know, the worst betrayal was yet to come, from someone inside Ji-hoon's own circle. And when it struck, it would force Aisha to decide once and for all, run from the danger or fight for the man who refused to let her go. In the dead of night, with bullets flying and blood on the floor, Ji-hoon screamed, I'll burn this entire world down before I let them take you and my son. Aisha never thought those words would feel like salvation. Curled on the cold concrete of an abandoned warehouse on the edge of Seoul, contractions ripping through her body hours too early, she clung to the sound of his voice cutting through gunfire. The betrayal had come from Min-jun, Ji-hoon's own cousin and trusted second-in-command, the one person he believed would never turn. Greed and an old grudge had poisoned him, and now Min-jun had sold them both to the rival Dragon clan for a bigger slice of the city. Hours earlier, everything had still felt almost normal. Aisha had finally agreed to move into Ji-hoon's fortress-like mansion on the hills overlooking Seoul. She told herself it was only for safety, only until the baby came. But every night she fell asleep with his arms around her growing belly, listening to him whisper Korean lullabies he remembered from his mother. He learned to make her cheesy grits with kimchi on the side, laughing when she moaned at the first bite. She taught him how to braid her hair when pregnancy made her arms too heavy, his strong fingers surprisingly gentle. They fought less now. Hate had burned itself out somewhere between midnight cravings and the first time he felt their son kick hard against his palm. Ji-hoon still ruled with an iron fist by day, but at night he was just a man terrified of becoming the father his own had been, distant, violent, gone. I want to be better, he confessed one evening as they watched the sunset paint the city gold. For him, for you. Aisha kissed him then, slow and deep, tasting promise instead of danger. Then the betrayal struck. Min-jun lured Aisha out with a fake message that Ji-hoon had been hurt and needed her as safe house. She went because love made her reckless. The moment the car door closed, she knew. Hands grabbed her, a needle pricked her neck, and darkness swallowed her whole. She woke tied to a chair, water dripping somewhere in the dark. The Dragon Clan's leader, a scarred man named Kong, circled her like a predator. Your boyfriend took everything from me, he snarled. Now I'll take everything from him. He pressed a knife to her belly, just hard enough to make her gasp. That's when a contraction started, sharp, relentless, too soon. Stress had triggered labor at barely 8 months. Ji-hoon came like a storm. His men breached the warehouse in a hail of bullets and shouted orders. He fought his way through bodies, blood soaking his white shirt, eyes wild until they found her. Min-jun stood in his path, gun raised. It had to be done, cousin, Min Jun said coldly. You went soft. Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. One shot ended years of brotherhood. He dropped to his knees beside Aisha, cutting her ropes with shaking hands. I'm here, baby. I'm here. The warehouse became chaos. Kang's men closed in. Ji-hoon carried her through corridors thick with smoke, shielding her as bullets whizzed past. A stray one grazed his shoulder, but he never slowed. Outside, his remaining loyal men held the line long enough for them to escape into waiting cars. Aisha screamed with each contraction, gripping his hand so hard her nails drew blood. Don't you dare leave me, she panted. Not now. He pressed his forehead to hers. Never again. They made it to a hidden safe house, a small apartment Ji-hoon kept for emergencies. No doctors, no hospitals, too risky. An older woman from his organization, a former midwife, arrived within minutes. Ji-hoon stayed at Aisha's side the entire time, letting her crush his fingers, wiping sweat from her face, whispering encouragement in Korean and broken English. You're the strongest woman I've ever known. Push, love. Our son needs you. After 3 agonizing hours, their baby arrived. A tiny boy with Ji-hoon's dark eyes and Aisha's full lips, crying loud and fierce. Ji-hoon cut the cord himself, hands trembling worse than during any gunfight. When a midwife placed the baby in his arms, something broke open inside him. Tears fell onto the blanket as he cradled his son against his chest. Look at him, he choked out. He's perfect. Aisha, exhausted and glowing, reached for them both. For the first time, they were a family. The war wasn't over. Kang wanted revenge, and Min Jun's betrayal had fractured the syndicate. Ji-hoon made a choice that night. While Aisha slept with their son tucked against her, he called the prosecutors he'd kept at arm's length for years. He offered everything, names, routes, accounts, in exchange for witness protection and immunity. It meant dismantling the empire he'd bled for, turning on men who'd once called him brother. Some would come for his head anyway. But as he watched mother and child sleep, he knew it was the only way to keep them safe. Weeks blurred in a quiet recovery. They moved twice before settling in a modest house outside Busan, far from Seoul shadows. Ji-hoon changed his name, cut his hair, learned to live without bodyguards trailing his every step. He took a job consulting on security for legitimate companies, using his mind instead of his fists. Aisha started an online design business that grew fast, her intercultural style catching fire. Their son, named Elijah Min-woo Thompson Kim, grew strong and fearless, speaking Korean to his father and English to his mother, laughing in both. Some nights, Ji-hoon still woke reaching for a gun that wasn't there. Aisha would pull him close, reminding him who he was now. You're not that man anymore, she'd whisper. You're mine. You're his. And he would bury his face in her neck, breathing her in like oxygen. 1 year later, on a warm spring evening, they stood on their small porch watching Elijah chase fireflies. Ji-hoon slipped a ring onto Aisha's finger. No grand proposal, just quiet certainty. Marry me, he said simply. Not for protection, not for the baby, for us. She looked at the man who'd once terrified her, now soft-eyed and steady, and answered with a kiss that tasted like forever. Years passed in a blur of ordinary miracles. First steps on sandy beaches, first words in 2 languages, family dinners blending soul food and banchan. Aisha's mother flew over often, grumbling about the humidity but melting every time Elijah called her Halmiani. Ji-hoon's sister became the cool aunt who spoiled him rotten. The past never fully vanished. Scars remained. Nightmares came. But love proved stronger on their son's 5th birthday. Under strings of lanterns and laughter, Ji-hoon pulled Aisha aside. I once told you I didn't care if you hated me, as long as that baby was mine, he said softly. She smiled, tracing the scar on his cheek. Good thing I never hated you for long. He kissed her then, slow and deep, while their little boy ran circles around them, free and fearless and loved beyond measure. From one reckless night in a neon city to a lifetime of quiet mornings. This is what choosing each other looks like. This is what redemption feels like. And this is what happens when a mafia boss learns that the greatest power isn't fear, it's family.